Turning to Tesla, California Governor Gavin Newsom excluding Elon Musk company from a proposal that would offer EV rebates to buyers if a federal subsidy is repealed. Newsom's office telling Bloomberg it's due to the plan's market share limitations. Musk calling the proposal insane in a post on X. Dan Ives of Wedbush saying this: with the majority of EVs sold in California being Teslas, this would be a risky political move in our view. Dan joins us for more. Dan, good morning.
Great to be here.
Do you agree it's insane?
Look, you had Jake Paul and Tyson. Now you got Newsom and Musk. I mean, this is going to be a battle, right? And ultimately, it's a political battle. But the only EVs that are made in California are Teslas. So if they actually go down this path, I believe this could be some threats where more and more jobs move from Fremont to
Texas.
Austin. But at the end of the day, federal tax, as we've talked about, that's going to get ripped away. That's bullish for Tesla. You're going to see this back and forth.
Before we get into that, let's just dig into this relationship. What is behind it? We know what was behind it with Biden. What this basically came down to was union workers not being at Tesla in the way that they were at GM and Ford. What's this one about?
Look, I think, first of all, I mean, Musk was iced out of the Biden administration for years, right? It was really focused on Detroit in terms of GM, Ford, and others. If you look here, is that there's a beef clearly between Musk and Newsom, but essentially what this is really about is that you are going to have these tax credits from a federal perspective taken away. California clearly trying to do something to stop that, but the reality is that the money ran out on this program in California.
So Dan, this is important. The support at a federal level is clearly with Elon Musk. At a state level in places like California, it looks like because of this tension, he's losing it. How important is that relationship at both the state and federal level when it comes to things like autonomous driving?
State, we view it as much less than from a federal perspective, because the golden goose here is autonomous. You know, we believe the autonomous piece is worth $1 trillion alone to Tesla. Federal regulatory spiderweb essentially gets ripped away, and I think that's significant. Now, California, Newsom clearly will try to fight some of the autonomous, some of the unsupervised FSD, but this is going to be something that's really going to continue. But I believe Tesla is going to have significant sort of room to what I view as elevate themselves within autonomous. And that's really what I believe is the key to this Tesla story. It's about AI and autonomous. What Newsom's doing here when it comes to California, this is essentially almost a sideshow to the broader story here with Tesla, which is why it's really been a Cinderella story since Trump got in because of the Musk bet.
But when it comes to autonomous driving and the federal regulations, it's not a light switch. This has to go through Congress. Elon Musk and his proximity to power cannot just basically get this over the finish line.
Of course, not in itself, but could move it significantly toward the finish line. So, he gets it to the 2-yard line. Right now, it's at the 40-yard line. 50, midfield. So he can get to the 2-yard line, but that's also why with the red sweep and just relative to what we see with coming out of the Beltway, being there over the last week, we feel like there's a groundswell for autonomous. But no doubt when it comes to EVs...
You feel there's a groundswell in Congress as well?
I believe there's a groundswell. The reason I think there's a groundswell based on our view and what we hear is because of what's happened in China. Because China is now going so far ahead of the U.S. when it comes to autonomous because of the lack of really regulatory spiderweb. That's why Trump, you have an AI czar come in. But who's going to be, from an AI czar perspective, Musk is going to have a front row seat to really everything here. And that's why it continues to be the poker bet for the ages for Musk, betting on Trump.
So basically, and this sort of goes to the heart, in some ways, of the beef between Newsom and Musk, the idea that it's one thing to be transactional in your policies if you're in the White House and you're in Washington, D.C. It's another if you're sitting at the state. And the White House will probably trump that. There is just a question of how far that will go. Do you actually believe that there will be policies crafted specifically to benefit Tesla over some of the rivals in the United States because of Musk's closeness to the White House?
Yeah, I think, look, clearly, Tesla is in just a much different situation relative to autonomous. So they have, first of all, they have the scale and scope on EVs. So you pull the tax credit, gives them a huge advantage just relative, to federal subsidies. But on autonomous, it's their world. Everyone else pays rent, along with Waymo. So when you look at this relative to other automakers, they're essentially almost going to have to license from Tesla. But when it comes to the state level, you look at Newsom. Look, does this end up in a UFC fight? I don't know. I mean, this is going to continue to play out between this beef, Newsom and Musk.
This goes beyond just Tesla. There was a report out of The Information saying that Google CEO called Donald Trump and Elon Musk was on the phone with him, and he was surprised by that. You talk about space and some of the space exploration and what's going to happen with the NASA budget. How much can you extrapolate out that the Musk halo is really something that you have to sort of get on the bandwagon as an investor, simply because there are going to be certain policies that will just de facto benefit him because of his closeness with the president?
I think you said it as best as I could say. I mean, this Musk and Trump, this is not going away. I actually see this something that's going to continue to expand. And it's going to be from China tariff discussions. When you look at Musk's ability in terms of President Xi and his relationship there, when it comes to AI, when it comes to autonomous EVs, that's why it comes down to Detroit. Musk, he wasn't at the cool kids table. Now there's a knock at the door. It's Elon. And I think that's really the issue right now that's starting to happen, is that everyone's starting to realize that this Musk-Trump alliance is going to continue in a lot of ways. Newsom's clearly trying to get into that, but I continue to believe that's probably going to be a battle he'll ultimately lose, because you continue going down that path, okay, more jobs go from Fremont to Austin. Oh, on second thought, maybe we won't exclude them.
So this is Tesla in California. You also cover GM. What's your reaction to the tariffs that have been threatened on Mexico, on Canada, given that we know that these automakers have quite a presence south of the border?
I mean, if you're Mary right now, Mary Barr, I mean, here it is. You have Musk that's going to be front row on Trump. Now you got these tariffs. I mean, you talk about heartburn from a GM perspective. Well, for a company right now, that's actually, I think it's some of the best execution that I've seen.
You've still got to outperform on the stock.
Because to me, if you look at execution, I still don't believe the stock is getting the right value relative to...
How exposed are they, though, to this tariff story? And if he goes through with it, can you still put an outperform on that stock?
They're exposed. We got to see how it all plays out. I continue to think that bark will be a little worse than the bite, in terms of as it all plays out. But for GM, for a company that's humming right now, it's kind of been a little 1-2 punch in that 313 area code.
So GM, the only reason I brought up GM is not about the tariffs, it's about F1. Expanding the grid to an 11th team. You went to Vegas over the weekend. What was your impression of things?
I mean, my first F1, and Ferro's had an influence in that. Look, that was just an epic week in terms of just being experienced F1, being part of the Ferrari team there. It was just an unbelievable experience. I recommend everyone. I went from from Ferro to the Netflix show.
John's an influencer now.
He's he's actually an F1 influencer. So I went from Ferro to the Netflix show to going to an F1 race. Next thing I know, it could be in Monaco. You never know where this is going to go.
Are you a signed-up member of the Tifosi now? Are you a Ferrari fan?
I am a signed-up Ferrari fan now. It starts with Penn State, but now Ferrari is part of that.
Okay, that's quite a contrast, Penn State and Ferrari.
But it goes. But you're talking about both elite.
You barbelled.
Exactly. You barbell the strategy.
Dan, thank you.